everyone, and welcome to the Powers Project. Today we're going to be discussing why Bernie Sanders is the only real candidate to consider for the President of the United States. And I'm going to have a couple guests with me today, which I'll have my producer Eddie and my friend Ralph that will be joining me today with different opinions. So it should be fun and very interesting.
This is the Powers Project.
这是台湾的 Powers 计划。
日本から The Powers Project.
Aus Deutschland das Powers Project.
Dall'Italia il progetto Powers.
The Powers Project. Powers Project.
Hello, guys. How you doing today?
I'm doing just fine.
Fantastic.
Excellent. I'm glad you guys could join me today, and because I felt that I wanted to get this out. In fact, I plan on having somebody from the Bernie camp to interview here in the next week or two. But with everything coming up as quickly as it is, I wanted to get this out there because I think it's important that we talk about who the viable candidates are for the Democratic nomination and ultimately for the presidency of the United States. Mm-hmm. So I've been a big supporter of Bernie Sanders since he came out in 2016, and I believe I've gone through the process. We talk about the 20-80 percenters, and I believe that in order for you to become a 20 percenter, that you have to go through that process, to challenge your beliefs and your perceptions of things and make sure they still hold water. And I believe I've done that. And that's why I've come to the conclusion that Bernie Sanders is really our only choice. And so you guys feel free to weigh in at any point, ask questions, make statements, whatever you'd like to do. If you agree, disagree.
Well, anything political is probably going to be an interesting conversation.
Yes, I believe
to begin with.
So let me start off by saying this. This is the core reason why I believe Bernie Sanders is our only option. Because if we don't get money out of politics, I truly believe it doesn't matter who we vote for. Because we're just going to continue getting bones thrown to us like we have for decades and decades. Because you have two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, and both parties are corrupt. They're both corrupt. And so if there's no way to get it uncorrupt, if you will, if that's a word, until you take the money out. And we see that it's getting worse and worse. Ever since Reagan, it's continued to get worse, where there's been little or to none bipartisan help with each other, because they become more and more secluded from each other, to where it's like, I'm going to grab my power and I'm going to grab my money, and the other side's like, we're going to grab our power and grab our money, and the hell with working together. They don't have any desire to work together. And the point that I'm going to make to show that this should be the number one topic over health care for all, for college free, or any other policies that are out there, the number one policy should be about getting money out of politics. And here's why. If you remember back in 2008 when Obama won the presidency, the Democrats controlled both the House and the Senate. And during the first 2 years, and very little got passed in the first 2 years. And the reason for that is because the centrist Democrats are corrupt, because they're beholden to their big money donors and their special interest groups. So even though Obama, and I believe Obama when he first came in was idealistic. I believe that he thought, we could change the world. I think he really believed that. And then he fell in line and realized this is a game and there's rules to it, and I have to play by those rules, otherwise nothing's going to get done. Mm-hmm. So in that first 2 years, he could have gotten everything he wanted accomplished, and he didn't, because the Democrats wouldn't even vote for what he wanted to pass, because again, it went against the big corporate donors that they have, and they weren't about to go against them because that's where they get their money, and they don't give a damn about the people. And we see this over and over again. We see, I can't even, there was just recently something in Orlando Senate about one of our representatives here in Orlando she was caught doing the same thing. She voted against what the people wanted because her big donors didn't want it. And they're so slimy about it, is that what they'll do is they'll say, oh yeah, they'll run on a certain policy, and then they'll say, oh well, I'm going to put this bill out. And what they do is they attach it to a bill they know is never going to pass because it has a bunch of pork barrels shit on it or whatever, or things that are unpopular. And then they know it's not going to pass. So they'll sit there and act like they're doing something for us. But in the meantime, they're telling their donors, don't worry, this isn't going to pass because I've attached it to a bill that's very unpopular and it's never going to get passed. Mm-hmm. So it's this little game that most people aren't aware of that they're playing, and it screws us over. But so we've become so accustomed to not getting what we want that when we do finally get something and they throw us a bone, we're so happy, and we are sitting there praising them for getting one thing done that we wanted and acting like they're God now. Like that's what happened with the Democrats, with Hillary. When gay people got the right, because both Obama and Hillary all of a sudden evolved to the point that they said, oh, we believe in gay marriage now, even though Hillary, out of her mouth, I remember her saying, exactly, I believe marriage is between one man and one woman. And then all of a sudden she evolved miraculously when it became convenient, because she was able to benefit from it. Regardless, when they pushed for that in the Supreme Court, even though they didn't have anything to do with it directly because the Supreme Court ruled that it was legal, they were behind it at that time. And we're saying they're praising them. Thank goodness for the Democrats, because of course you have the Republicans on the other side pandering to the far right, religious zealots. And so we feel like, oh, these people were in our corner. But the thing is, they were only in our corner because they saw it was advantageous for them to be at that point in time. We could have had this years ago, but we keep being fed that things take time. You have to, no, it doesn't. It does not have to take time. Just like this whole thing about, in 2016, we can't force all this down their throats at once. Yes, we can. There's over 300 million of us, and we can force this down their fucking throats. We can tell them what we want, but the only way we can do that is to be important to them. And right now, we're not important to them. Their big donors are important to them.
So why do you think that happens, Kurt?
Because the big donors are the people that they're concerned with, because that's where they get their money. That's how they get their pockets lined. How do you think Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton went from being millions of dollars in debt in 2000 to now being worth over $130 million?
They're getting paid off.
Exactly. It's not because they, as much as they get paid for their speeches and stuff, they don't get paid that kind of money.
All right. So let me ask you a hypothetical situation. Okay. How long's Bernie been in the Senate?
He's been in the Senate for well over 30 years, probably close to 40.
Right. So Bernie is a great example of what I believe is the crux of the challenge. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to take aside Bernie's political platform, go right to what you just said, which is the money's in the politics. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you look at Bernie and you look at all these other guys that have been in the Senate for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, okay, or in the House of Representatives over and over again, the question you got to ask yourself, I think, is a different question. How do we allow these people, which from my perspective, our government was set up to be representative of the people. Once you get voted and you leave your district or your state and you go to Washington, you are going to be corrupted. That's where all the lobbyists are. That's where all the people dumping the money on you, taking the dinners and stuff, looking for payback. So until you address that thing, literally about term limits, and how do you remove the politicians to say, you know what, let's look at operating our government differently because it's not working. For instance, how often does our senators and representatives actually spend time where they got voted?
Right, exactly.
So they go to Washington. They're in a bubble up there.
Mm-hmm.
All the pressure comes on from their cronies in their political party to vote our way or vote on his platform, whatever. And the question you ask yourself, does that really represent, just like you said, what the people in this district that they represent want? That make sense?
Yeah.
So if you don't have those people coming back to have me knock on your door and go, hey, asshole, you're not doing the right thing. They're held not accountable. So they escape the pressure from the people by being in Washington.
Absolutely.
And when you see this face over and over again, it makes it very difficult for somebody to come in and go, well, let me tell you what I could do. Because they don't have the inside knowledge of really what's going on in a lot of areas of our government, which we don't know. So until you say we have to have term limits, and we're at the point where you can't have people literally vote from their office here, you got to change the dynamic. And
Well,
Bernie, I look at, is part of this challenge.
okay, so let me give you a different perspective on that, okay? Bernie is not a part of the problem. There are two people that they'll tell you in Congress that you could not corrupt. Bernie Sanders, and the other one was it Rand Paul? The father. Who's the father? Rand
Yeah,
Paul.
I know you're talking.
Okay, so those are the only two people the lobbyists would never go to, because they wouldn't go to dinners, they wouldn't sell out, and so the lobbyists never even bothered with them because they knew they couldn't get them to change, because they wouldn't take the money, they wouldn't take the dinners and the trips and all that stuff. So here's the thing: if we take money out of politics, we won't have career politicians who want to be in there unless they're there to do the right thing, because they're no longer going to make the money, and that the whole purpose for them staying in there as a career is the money. So take the money out, and guess what? All these slime balls who are in there just to make a career out of it, so they can become wealthy and rich off our backs, they'll leave because the money won't be there any longer.
So why not do term limits?
Because you won't need term limits. What I'm saying is that when you have someone like Bernie Sanders, and here's an argument that everybody always goes, what has Bernie accomplished in 40 years in being in the Senate? It's very difficult to get anything passed when you have corrupt senators who refuse to work with you, because again, the bills that you're wanting to put forth go against their donors. They're not going to work with you.
Well,
So you can't look at that as a negative. If anything, I'd look at that as a positive. And the other thing is that I think we need to understand the things that Bernie has helped not get passed. Not just what has he passed, what has he prevented from happening to us as a whole, where we didn't end up getting screwed even more by the banking industry or the oil industry or any of these, or higher taxes on us, or even saving Social Security. Joe Biden's come out and has been completely lying about his record on Social Security, but you can see where Bernie Sanders has stood up time and time again to not just keep Social Security, but to improve Social Security, where Biden has been putting it up for years as one of the things that he wants to cut, that and Medicare both.
So Kurt, though, here's what I'm saying: the parallel, you just brought up Biden. Now here's a guy who was a career politician, 50 years in politics or whatever it may be.
Right.
His claim to fame is he was Obama's right hand guy and he knows how to be a president. No, that's not really true. Yet here's two guys. And you can go down the list of all these same type of people who've been in the game for so long that they literally, as far as I'm concerned, they have no understanding of what reality is. And if you listen to Bernie's message, it's the same old story that's been going on for 20 years.
It's not old. I mean, here's the thing. It's not an old story. It's about doing what's right. If that's an old story, then keep telling me that story, because that's the story I want to hear. Biden, you're right. People like Biden, who are career politicians, who've been doing everything to line their own pockets and to increase the power and money that comes into the Democratic Party, they're corrupt. You're right. We absolutely need to get rid of people like Biden. The thing is the way you get rid of him is not by putting term limits on him, because what happens when you do get good people in there? Why would you want to get rid of them if they're continuing to fight for you?
Here's why, Kurt. Okay, so I'm going to use these two guys, Biden and Bernie. Okay, and I'm going to use them just strictly because they're career politicians. All right.
Okay.
They never ran an enterprise on their own. They never had to do business. They've been in the government, sucking off the government tit for 30 plus years.
I disagree.
So based upon that, they don't get what's going on. So now, why would you want to change things up? Because as long as you have this thing where there are no term limits, and just consider this perspective. Say I'm going to lube you up to get in the office for me, and I'm going to dump money into you. I'm a political action committee, or I'm a lobbyist or whatever it is. Once I lube you up and you get into office, I've put all my money into you, so I have to put a lot less money into you going forward.
Right.
Okay? Now you change that around, and all of a sudden I got to be dumping a lot of more money into all these new people coming along.
Okay, what happens if you just say you're not allowed to dump money in there?
Okay, so let's go to the next point. So I'm saying until you break that long-term investment part, because these guys are career politicians, nothing's going to change.
Okay, agreed.
Okay.
That's what I said from the opening statement.
So now, I am sure in the state of Vermont and in Delaware, there are some very smart, young, strategic, forward-thinking people in those states, just like every state has, that say, I'd like to get in politics, yet there's no way I can compete with a Bernie who has literally the machinery and the apparatus set up. So that's the other part you got to look at. These guys who have been in there for years, they've got all their stuff ready to go. So when you're a startup, you're competing with the giant corporation. That's kind of what it gets down to. So then you back it out and go, when I do term limits, I make it where I have to have fresh thoughts and ideas coming in. So I look at Bernie, and I'll be specific with Bernie. I sit here and I go, we are facing a catastrophic human challenge in our lifetimes. I'm 57, you're 50 something. Okay, I'm 50 something. In the next 10 years, either we make massive transformational change across the board on every aspect, immigration, energy, food supply, education, all this stuff. Either we do it in the next 10 years as the U.S., or we will not see 2050.
I agree, 100%.
And I haven't heard Bernie or any one of these other people be specific.
I have.
on,
Absolutely.
This is the path we need to go, other than the big Green New Deal. I'm all about green stuff, as you know. Yet I haven't heard one person say, look, it's great to have electric cars like the one that was parked outside.
Right.
Yet until you understand that for all of us to have electric cars, we have to get our power generation figured out first. Because all you're going to do is just burn more coal.
Well, but here's the thing, and that's if you look into Bernie's policies even deeper, you see that he no longer, he's going to stop the subsidies to the oil corporations. He does, there's no reason for that. Why don't we subsidize a company like Tesla? If we're going to subsidize anybody, help them out to where they can make cars that are cost $30,000, so we can start getting people who can afford these Teslas in a mass, market, to where now it becomes viable for everybody and we get rid of them. But here's why it's not done right now is because there's too much money in the oil industry. And that means the big cats and the rich people who have stock in this, plus, it's an economy all of its own. And so, they're going to tell you, just like with the banking industry, oh, it's too big to fail because of all the people hurt. I'm calling bullshit. Those people who are in the oil industry, if you're not smart enough to transfer over and realize that electric is the way that the future, then that's on you. If you believe in true capitalism, then that's what you should believe. That if these companies don't evolve, then they go away.
So
Walgreens, or not Walgreens, Woolworths. Woolworths went out of business because they didn't evolve. Sears went bankrupt because they didn't evolve. I mean, that's just the way of capitalism. So why do these people get a pass?
Which people?
The oil industry. Why does
so look at what you just said and look at the bigger picture of capitalism, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So traditionally for over 100 years, the oil business has been a driver for the economy because it's energy. It's also financial benefit. People invest in it, they get great returns, etc. So now, what you're talking about is exactly true. The externality costs of burning coal or burning oil or tanker leaks that destroy an environment, they never have to really pay for that.
No,
so it's
we
always
pay
been
for
free.
it.
Right. So we pick up the tab. So now we're picking up this tab. And when you hear somebody say, oh, to relocate Miami is going to cost trillions of dollars. Okay, well, guess what? Who's going to pay for that? Not the people who generate it. So what happens is when you look at this energy thing, everybody's complicit. What I haven't heard from Bernie or anybody else is the strategic vision that's required right now. And I haven't heard it from Trump. I haven't heard from anybody. The strategic vision who says, we got to get here. And step by step, this is what we have to do collectively. Because until somebody says we have to go in this direction as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to have things move. Now, finally, if you recognize the financial markets are finally saying we need to slowly start divesting out of coal, oil, and natural gas, and we got to put into renewables. So the financial people are sitting there with a lot to lose, are saying we got to start making this shift. They're doing it now. It's constantly on the news about what they're thinking about. So I sit here going, if Bernie's great, I don't want to hear about healthcare for everybody because that's a waste of time.
To you,
No, it's a waste of time.
it's not a waste of time.
Why not?
Because we already talked about the fact that, you went through a process, you went through something where you had prostate cancer. And because of you owning your own business, you had insurance that covered it. What if you hadn't? What if,
I'll put myself in that situation now. I don't have health insurance now. I haven't had it in 5 years.
What would have happened? You couldn't afford to pay for it.
I would have figured something out.
Yeah, you say that.
No, I do say that.
So here's the thing, but I want you to understand something, because you and I have different mindsets. Eddie has a different mindset. We will figure it out. Not everyone has that mindset, and you can't go, oh well, that's poor them. It's because that's not how it works. The thing is like you have to understand that there are people out there who won't know how to figure it out.
Well, how about this, Kurt? Though, how about this? Eddie's a younger guy. He looks healthy to me. Yeah, I know where you are. You're a healthy guy. I know where I am. I'm getting healthier. Okay. So my question is, why would I want to be a taxpayer when somebody says Medicare for all and all this free stuff for people who are smokers, who are drinkers, who are fat shits who don't want to improve their lives, or say, let's have all the immigration come in here too, and let's take care of everybody. We cannot pay for all this stuff.
Okay, so
unless you start saying
you're conflating the arguments, okay? Because look, when we allow immigrants in, they bring a workforce with us.
Don't buy it.
No, okay, here, buy this. I'll tell you what you buy. Get rid of all the illegal immigrants out of here, and when you have to pay $15 for a fucking tomato, then you'll buy it. You'll literally buy it right then.
So here's the thing.
And again, I'm not saying that that's how they should come in. I'm saying that they provide a service for us, and that for us to sit there and pretend or make up this bullshit about how they're on the dole and getting welfare, which they can't get.
Bullshit.
No, they can't.
They absolutely can.
Oh yeah, how?
They get Medicaid.
Medicaid because
just because. I'm telling you right now, I know for a fact.
All right. I'm not sure that you're correct on that, but I'm not going to argue because I don't know for a fact.
The question you got to ask yourself is, how does somebody come, and this is all tied together for the long term. And if you wonder what's dividing the country, is that you can't continue to say, like Bernie has and a few of the other people like Warren, all this free stuff.
It's not free.
Off of whose back?
It's not free. We pay for it. And because we...
Who's the we?
The taxpayers. And here's the thing, and he keeps saying this, and I don't know how this message gets lost to the masses, but he keeps saying, we're going to raise taxes on the super wealthy. We're going to raise taxes so they're paying their fair share. So these corporations are paying taxes. I don't know how that gets lost in the message. He's saying there will be no more taxes, raising taxes on the lower and middle class people. He's absolutely come out and said this, and so he's shown his program how, by making these super wealthy and the corporations pay taxes, how it will pay for these things. He's also shown, and this is the thing, I don't want to get off track but I want to go back and go, we cannot put the cart before the horse, and that's what you're attempting to do. You're trying to say, let's put term limits. Well, first off, any new senator that comes in who's a freshman will tell you it's impossible. They have to go. It's like being in the good old boys club where you have to be initiated. You have to raise a certain amount of money. They won't even let your bills be put forward. And when they do like a bill or something, they actually put their name on it instead of your name.
So Kurt,
so there's this game that you can sit there and go, oh well, you can bring new thoughts and ideas in. Those thoughts and ideas will never be put forward because of the people who are already in there. And this game is going to continue to be played, whether it's with new players or old players. It's still this game, and the game is all predicated on money. So until you take money out, it doesn't matter if you do term limits or not. It's not going to have any effect whatsoever. So money is to me, again, money is the number one thing as far as, again, healthcare, again, forget healthcare, forget the environment, forget all that, because none of that's going to be done until we get money out of politics. None of it. And Bernie and and Andrew Yang, and maybe Tulsi, I don't remember, but only Andrew Yang and Bernie that I'm aware of have talked about, we want to get money out of politics. Bloomberg doesn't have a desire to get money out of politics. It doesn't matter whether he bankrolls his own campaign right now or not. He knows he'll make it up in the end, just like Trump knows that. Trump's been making a shit ton of money since he's been president. And so has Ivanka and Jared and all the rest of his family.
So let me get this right, okay? Because you're just making a couple things that... Eddie, what's your input on this?
Eddie. No, I'm listening right now. I'll have input when I have input.
So here you're saying get money out of politics, okay?
Yes.
And you look at literally some of the clowns that were up on stage for the Democratic thing, okay?
Yeah.
Castro should have never been up there.
Nope.
Beto should have never been up there,
Nope.
okay? So I go back to this. In the current environment, how does Bernie get elected when you have to go against a massive money machine?
Okay.
Tell me how he's going to do it, because I cannot see him doing it given his, send in your dollar, whatever his requirement is to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
I go, that's all wonderful and everything. Yet how are you going to do this?
Okay. Here's exactly how it's going to be done. One, he doesn't need the money that Trump has. That's number one, because he spends his money more wisely than Trump does. And the thing is that there's a movement that I'll tell you right now, I think that there's a large part of the country that's unaware of. I can tell you mainstream media is unaware of it. And I think the corrupt establishments of both the Republican and Democratic Party are unaware of it. There's this movement through social media that's taking place that is so powerful that's why Bernie gets all this money. As soon as Warren attacked him on her bullshit lie, he had more donations that night than any other candidate ever after a debate. And it was because people knew what she was doing. See, we have to ask ourselves this. If Bernie's not a threat, then why the fuck are they coming after him with everything they've got? There's a multi-pronged attack on Bernie right now.
In the Democratic Party.
On the Democratic Party, which is ridiculous. So ask yourself, why would the Democrats, why would they come out and attack one of their own?
I'll tell you exactly why.
Why?
If you look at what's going on in the Democratic Party from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
you have a fragmented party.
We do.
You literally have what I believe is happening, and from seeing everything, is you have a very, and I'm going to say left, meaning socialist, literally socialism-driven party with the chick there, Ocasio from New York, okay? Cortez. They're screaming, we get all, they're screaming this message. Bernie's on that side of the thing. The battle is for the centrist Democratic Party, who a guy like me voted for Obama twice,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Who would vote for a Bloomberg instead of anybody else.
Okay.
Because he's going to be more centrist than anybody else.
Why would you want a centrist? A centrist is never going to want to get money out of politics.
Well,
And you're
why I'd
always
want a
going to be
centrist.
thrown a bone. You're never going to get what you want.
Okay, so here's what I would want a centrist for. I'd want a centrist because if you're going to defeat Trump, you have to pull the voters like me who voted for him. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And other people like me that I know who also voted for Trump, who said he was going to do a lot of stuff. He's done some good things, whether people want to admit it or not.
He has.
Okay? And he's also a complete disaster.
But he's also fucked a lot of things up.
I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is, in the matrix of things that have benefited our country, I think he's done some. Could he have done a lot more if he wasn't a freaking maniac? Absolutely. Okay? What I think has happened, though, is people look at him and go, that's not the person we want being our president of our country. So you have those people who are going to be rooted in for him, the fanatics for Trump, and then you have the middle, which is me. And people who put Trump in the office who are sitting there going, I don't think I want to vote for him again. Yet when I look at the alternative, Bernie's not my guy.
Okay, so
Warren's not my guy. Biden's not my guy. Pete is more my guy.
Pete is nothing but another Biden.
It doesn't matter though, Kurt.
But why does it? See, here's the thing. That doesn't make any sense. You say that doesn't matter. Biden's not your guy. Buttigieg is.
Biden's a corrupt motherfucker.
And so is Buttigieg. He's only going to do and say what he needs to do and say to get elected. He's another centrist who will not. He will not get rid of money.
I know he's a centrist. That's why I just said I vote for him more than anybody else.
So here's what I see is that you're going to vote against your own best interest. You're going to vote for someone who will maintain the status quo, keep money in politics, and we will have the same thing. And as the old saying goes, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to vote another centrist in who's going to do the same exact thing that all the other centrists have done, and that's stay corrupt, keep money in politics, and we're never going to make progress or move forward.
So then tell me how if Bernie became president, he would eliminate money from politics.
Okay, so let's get back to how he's going to get elected. There's a movement that's going on that again, I don't speak for everybody who considers himself, the senator in the center of the Democratic Party, because I believe that AOC and I believe Bernie are the center. I believe that the centrists are more right and close. And here's what I'm going to make a couple predictions. One, I'm going to make a prediction that when Bernie Sanders wins the presidency, that you're going to get these centrist Democrats, and they're going to do just like the Dixiecrats did back in the 50s and 60s. They're going to move to the Republican Party because they're closer to the Republican Party than they are to actually the Democratic Party. They have become so right of the left that they're closer to being Republicans than they are Democrats. And I think you're going to see a shift from this becoming a party of centrists to a party of progressives. And I think you're going to see those centrists move right over to the Republican parties like the Dixiecrats did. That's number one. Number two, when he wins the presidency, the Democrats are going to be sitting back going, how the fuck did this happen?
Just like Trump hijacked the Republicans.
Right. And here's the thing. They're going to sit back and they'll scratch their heads and wonder how the fuck this happened, because all the polls show Biden in front and all that shit. Because these people aren't smart enough to realize younger people don't fucking pick up their phones to answer the phone if they don't recognize the number. So from people probably about 40 on down, they're being discounted because they don't do these polls. They're not being asked, who are you voting for? And so they're missing out on a huge movement that's going on that they're not even realizing is going on. And it's happening over the internet. It's happening over social media. And what you're going to find is that when he wins the presidency, he's going to need to get money out of politics very quickly, because I guarantee you when they figure out how this movement happened and that it happened online, they're going to do everything they can to control that so it never happens again. So that's why it's so important to get money out of politics and get these people out, these centrists out of the Democratic Party, because if we don't, they will control the narrative from this point on. And I'm going to tell you this too. I believe that this is a revolution that we have been waiting for. And I've said this before. I think Trump winning was the best thing that could happen to this country. And here's why. Not because he's a great president, because like you said, he's done some good things, but personally, in my opinion, I think he's a fucking asshole. Now, where I was going to go after that.
So I'll bring you back to where we're going. So
Okay.
Mayor Pete.
Yeah.
Okay. I said he's centrist, and you said, yeah, he's just like everybody else.
Right. He is.
Okay. And you said that the AOC crew and Bernie are now the middle of the Democratic Party.
Right.
So what's that going to do is it's going to drive the Democrats, who are also centrists, who don't buy into a lot of these things that Bernie says, Warren says. They're out there. A lot of people.
I disagree.
I would call them independents more than anything.
The
okay?
polls show overwhelmingly that not only Democrats but Republicans like his policies on free college and on health care for all. Over 70%.
So Kurt, Bernie has free college too, right?
Yeah. Why not? Here's the thing.
So does Bernie want to get rid of student debt too, like Warren?
first off, Warren doesn't want to do shit. She talks out her
No,
ass.
hold on. Does he?
Yes, he does.
All right, so let me go back to the whole thing about equity. And this is why a guy like me, and I'm sure a lot of other people are saying this is unfair.
Mm-hmm.
You sit there and go, okay, you took out student loans for whatever reason. Now you have to pay them back, so we're going to eliminate them. Yet a guy like me says, my kid's college was paid for because I worked my balls off for it. Just like the guy said to Warren, where's my refund? Oh, you don't get one.
Okay.
Okay, so what this all gets down to is going to be class warfare. Everything's going to be free. If you have debts, we're going to wipe them out. Who's going to pay for that shit?
Okay, look.
So I go back, Kurt, to again, when you have positions like that, you sit there going, wait a second, I haven't heard one of these people who say free college education if you have debt. You want to work it off? We're going to set up the job crew or civil service where you got to work it off. We're not going to give you shit.
All right, this is where I kind of agree with Warren somewhat, where I think that there should be a certain amount of that debt that is paid back. But, for someone who takes out, let's say, my best friend took out $30,000 for college, okay? He's been out of college for over 20 years. He won't have that debt paid. It was only $30,000, and he's not going to have that debt paid off until he's nearly 60
Why?
years old. Because of the interest rate, because of the way...
No, hang on.
No, wait.
Why?
Why what?
Why can't he pay it off?
He is paying it off. He's making his payments, but because of the way it's designed, it's to keep these people in debt for the rest of their lives.
Kurt,
Unless you're a doctor or lawyer, it never makes sense to take out any type of student loans because you're never going to pay them back. Because if you're, I don't care what your degree's in. You could get a degree, in his case, he got a degree in journalism. Now, he didn't go into the field of journalism because he realized, how corrupt it was. But he went into something else where he makes a great living. He makes, he makes good money.
If he's making a great living, why couldn't he pay it off?
Because again, when I say, because look, when the pay scale doesn't keep up with inflation and things cost a hell of a lot more than, so, $25, let's say, an hour 10 years ago was pretty good money. Today, it's not shit. So when your pay doesn't keep up with inflation, how do you expect them? I know you think, oh well, he should be able to have excess money.
Is when you sit there and this whole free education thing is interesting. Okay, I go back to, all right, do you give refunds for people who pay for their educations? Oh no, we can't do that.
No,
we're just going to take care of the people who took out loans who say they don't want to pay for them now. Okay,
all right. So
then how do you do free education? Where's the money going to come from?
Again, he's already talked about how. Well, first off, how about we quit spending all of our money in the fucking military, where we have a larger military than the next 10 militaries combined.
I agree with you on that.
All right, so we can take some of that money and pay for it there. And that's number one. The same way. All right, so let's step back just for 1 second because I want to make a couple points. You talk about it being unfair. Well, do you have any children?
I do not know.
Your children are grown. My children are grown. Yet you still pay taxes to pay for public schools. Why? My kids aren't in school. Why the fuck am I paying for it? Why are you paying for it? You don't have kids in school.
Well,
why are you paying for it? You already paid for yours. Why are you still paying for it?
Because that's how it is.
That's right. Because we know that makes for a better society to have our kids be educated than not educated. So it's for the greater good. That's number one. Okay. So for our kids to have a college education betters us as a society than if they don't. So here's the next point. Because of the student loans, kids go to college because they see money. And that's exactly what they see. And they don't think, because this is why credit card companies go out to spring break every year and give away fucking credit cards, these teenagers who don't know the first thing about credit or money because they're young and don't know how to manage money. They know they'll rack up debt. And they know that, that their parents are going to want to keep their credit score up. So they're going to help pay for it or whatever. They don't care. So these kids are able to get these student loans, and they're not thinking about the future because kids don't think about the future. They only think about what they can do right now. Mm-hmm. And they're racking up this debt. So guess what happens when you make college free? These kids who are only going so that they can get money will stop. They're not going to go to college anymore. They'll go to a trade school. They'll go or into the workforce. They will not be pursuing college because it's not monetarily advantageous to them any longer to do so. So we wipe that whole problem out. So where we think, oh, well, we're gonna have to give free college to all these kids. Who are all these kids? All these kids don't want to go to college unless they have a reason and it's advantageous to them. Take away that money, advantage, and you're going to find a lot less people wanting to go to college because they'll go, look, it's not for me. But I know that we have kids in college right now.
Why don't we just take a communist approach to this thing?
It's not, because it doesn't have to be.
No. Why don't we take a communist approach to this thing and saying, you scored on this, you're going to go to this place to learn this skill. Fuck you, that's the way it's going to be.
No.
Because this is where it's all headed,
No,
Kurt.
it's not.
Absolutely
No,
it
it's
is.
not. No one's telling you what you have to study in college. You're going to be able to make that decision whether you want to go to college or not, but you'll do it for the right reasons. You're not going to do it because you're thinking, hey, I got bills to pay, so if I sign up in college and I can get a loan, I can pay these bills while I'm going to college, and it's like this, and then I don't have to work as much. So let me finish my thought. The second thing is, and I'm just going to say this real quick before I get off track. No ism by itself is correct. Socialism, communism, capitalism, none of those isms by themselves work alone. That's why even in our country, a capitalistic society, we have socialism. We have libraries. We have police forces. We have fire departments that take care of us. I've never used a fucking fire department in my life. I've never called the police a day in my life. But yet I pay for those fucking things because I know it benefits everybody else. So for us to sit there and act so goddamn, and again, not you but we have too many people out there that think if it doesn't affect me, I shouldn't have to pay for it. And we've gotten to this point where we're so fucking greedy that all we think about is ourselves. We quit thinking about ourselves as a society and how it benefits this country by being thoughtful of others. And
don't you think, though, that we're at the point where it's set up that says, listen, like if you say, tax the billionaires, tax the millionaires, they don't deserve their wealth.
That's not, I don't agree with that.
Okay, you don't agree with that, nor do I. Yet that's the message.
It's not the message. And
they don't need their money as much. They don't deserve to keep it.
It's not that. It's that they use our resources more than we do. So,
bullshit.
No, but it's not bullshit. Tell me when you have companies like Coca-Cola who are able to draw water out of the springs for free. I don't give a fuck if they're a company or not. They're not paying for anything except to milk our resources, and they get it for free.
You're conflating two different things.
I'm not.
There's the individual, which is the biggest complaint that the billionaires and millionaires and people who have wealth and make money don't deserve it. Then there's the corporate side of it. Now, the corporate side of this, I agree, there's a lot of challenges. Why should they go out to pump water out of the ground for free and go sell water to us for $1 a bottle?
Right.
Okay, I agree. Now, that's stupidity on the municipality to let them do that, okay? All right. Then you step back and go, wait a second. You want to penalize people, and at the same time you want to say, we need jobs, we need this and that. The capital has to come from somewhere.
It does. It comes from the consumer, which we are the number one consumer-driven country in the world, which is I truly personally believe is the only reason why we're still a power, is because they need us to buy their shit. Every country needs us to buy their shit.
I'm going to go back up, though. The consumer is buying stuff that's going to make the company or whoever a profit that's going to go out to people who have ownership of those companies, whether they're stock owners or individual owners. That's the investment part of the whole thing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to keep penalizing those companies.
Why is that a penalty? Because they're paying their share of taxes.
No, the question goes to, what is their share?
What is their share when you have?
No, I'm asking you. How do you?
I don't. Here's the thing. I go back to I believe it was in the 40s when the wealthy were paying like 35% or 40% in taxes, and the economy was booming, and amazingly there were more jobs, even though nowadays they'll say, oh, that would shut us down, we wouldn't be able to hire more. No, you wouldn't be able to make as much profit. But when you're making so much profit and all you care about is you get these pencil pushers who sit there and they'll, let's cut a little bit here, like there's restaurants, for instance, will sit there and start cutting things down, like the ingredients. They'll go to a cheaper ingredient so that they can make more profit. But they don't pay their workers a living wage but then the CEO, and again, I don't fault how much they pay the CEO. If he's making this company profitable and it's making their shareholders wealthy, that's fine. But don't get so goddamn greedy. You can't sit there and tell me Disney, who makes, I can't remember how many billions in profit they made this past year, but you can't take some of that and pay your workers a living wage. That's bullshit.
Kurt,
it.
Actually, no, I don't buy that, because here's what I look at.
Why?
I look at things from strictly a business perspective.
Okay.
Now look at it from this point of view. The restaurant business, I was involved in it for a long time, has very slim margins. Okay. So now the guys down at 2J's or whoever, Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, 2J's down in West Palm, whoever they are, McDonald's in Chicago, they're public companies and their job is to produce profit, right?
Right.
Okay. If they don't produce profit, Kurt, they're going to go out of business. And people don't have jobs.
I agree.
So given that the nature of that business is the margins that the operation makes are very slim, you got to step back and go, okay, if I start raising the minimum wage to people say a living wage, I don't know what a living wage is anymore. If it's not $10 an hour, it's 15. If it's not 15, it's 25. If it's not 25, it's 50. There's a point where you got to sit there and go, labor economics doesn't work out for these things.
You know why?
So let me just take a local thing like we're talking about, the restaurant that everybody knows about. All right. So now I got to pay more to my employees that I have slim margins to begin with. How do I pay for that? I have to raise my prices, Kurt. I either have to cut costs or raise prices.
Okay, so you make a good point. So let me make this.
Hang on,
right,
let me finish, because this is happening right now.
Right.
So now you sit there going, okay, so you want me to pay more wages? Then I'm going to have to cut. So if I cut my food and my quality goes down, I'll lose customers and my sales drop. So that's the first risky part of it. Secondly, if I cut my employees, how do I subsidize that? I have to raise prices. So now a customer says, well, I don't want to pay $15 for a regular hamburger. There's a place right up the street that sells them for $10. So you get into this thing of consumers. Not everybody's going to be buying a $15 hamburger. So you're going to change the whole dynamics.
Okay.
Now look at what McDonald's did. They said, oh, you want us to pay $15 an hour? I'll put freaking kiosks out front.
Okay, so
you want to go to the airport? I don't have to have people anymore.
Right.
I got a kiosk. So I'll save a shitload of money. I'll make more profitable because you want me to pay more.
All
so
right.
I'm going to pay more to less and less people. And where are those people going to go?
All right, so here's
Andrew
the thing.
Yang's argument exactly.
Right. All right, and I agree with Andrew Yang, and I do. So here's a point that I'll make, and I'm not going to name the restaurant. There is a restaurant right now who's raised their prices, has cut back on the portions on their food. I'm not going to say that they went with less ingredients because I don't believe that's true, but they've cut back on their portions and raised their prices so they can make more profit. So if you're doing that, you didn't give your employees a raise. You're just making more profit for the company. You're increasing that profit margin, and you're not giving anything to the people that work for you. So these restaurants who sit there and go, our profit margins are very slim, I think in most cases that's absolutely true. But when you increase your profit margin and you're not willing to give anything to your people and say, oh, well, we can't afford to give, it's like I was making a point with Disney. Disney it makes billions in profit and don't give their employees raises at all. Then they're not being paid a living wage. A living wage is where you should be able to go get an apartment and live in it by yourself without having to have two other roommates because it's unaffordable. And the thing about Disney is Disney can't sit there and go, well, we have to be able to compete against our competitors, because Disney will be the first one to tell you they don't have any goddamn competitors. So if you don't have any competitors, then what the fuck are you worried about? Pay your people, a decent wage so they can live in their own apartment and not need 3 other people to live with them because they can't afford it. And so I don't buy into this whole concept that companies they can't afford to pay their people better.
So
they don't want to. Walmart, you're going to sit there and tell me Walmart can't pay their people? Horse shit. They don't pay their people because they let us pay them, because they don't make enough money that then they have to get on welfare because they're not making enough money for the work that they're doing. And we bought into this whole narrative that, companies need to do this. No, they don't. Companies started realizing a long time ago that if we don't have full-time employees, we don't have to pay benefits. So we're going to do away with most of the full-time employees.
Right.
So the people get fucked over. Now, why do they get fucked over? Because it's all about supply and demand. We have way too many people who want to work and not enough jobs. When Massachusetts back in the 80s couldn't get enough people to work because there were all these jobs, fucking McDonald's was paying $10 an hour back in the 80s to flip burgers. Back in the 80s.
That's labor economics, Kurt.
Right, exactly. So I'm not even going to get into why that happened, because that's a whole nother show. But if we didn't have all the people in the workforce, they wouldn't control us any longer. The first thing they want you to do is they want you to go buy a house so you're in debt for the rest of your life. So now you have to work for them. Now you're a slave to, if not that job, another job, because you can't just go.
So what do you think Bernie's answer to all this is?
Again,
paying everybody more instead of national higher minimum wage for a living wage?
All right, let's get back to this. And again, because I don't necessarily believe that is the way to go. Okay, I don't necessarily believe that that raising the minimum wage is going to make things better for us, because all it does is that companies, like you said, will increase their prices. It happens all the time. So we're going to still end up in that boat until there's, I believe, real jobs that are out there in the masses, where we have so many jobs that there's so much productivity going on with our companies that they need more and more people. Then we'll be able to start demanding, whether or not we can be full-time, whether we can have benefits, whether we, what kind of money we're going to get paid. Right now, I don't think Bernie or anybody else can solve that particular issue. And it looks like they're going to, it may look like they're solving the issue by raising minimum wage. I don't think it is. I think it's a Band-Aid over a gaping wound that's not going to do anything to stop the blood flow. So let me get back to this. We need to quit thinking about just ourselves and thinking about, well, I paid off my kids' college, so why should you get your college, paid off for? I'm going to give you a story back from when I was a kid. When I was a kid, my parents were very poor. And when I got my first car, I bought my first car. I bought my second car. I bought every car I've ever owned. But when I was 16 years old, I worked my ass off part-time, going to school, wrestling, and doing all that shit, and saved my money so I could buy my own car, because my parents couldn't afford to buy me a car. My brother did the same exact thing. Worked, saved money, bought his own car. By the time my sister was old enough to drive, my parents were in a better financial situation, and they bought her a car. Now, I didn't sit there and go, where the fuck is my free car? Why'd you buy her a car, but you didn't buy me a car? I was just glad and happy that my parents were in a better financial situation to buy her a car. I didn't sit there and go, woe is me, because I didn't get a car. And that's what's happened in this society. It's all about me. What about me? That's
what Bernie's buying into completely.
No, that's what I'm saying.
His voters buying into that completely.
Right.
Why can't I get it for free?
No.
They shouldn't have it.
They're not buying into it for free. And it irks me to no end when people keep going, oh, they want something for free. No, they don't. They want something for the money that they're putting in to come back to benefit them. They don't want their money put into a fucking military that's 10 times large, that's larger than the next 10 militaries combined. They don't want it. They want it put into something that benefits them. And so this whole narrative that's being fed by the uber wealthy and by these corporations that, oh, they want it for free. No, it's not. They're fucking paying for it. They just want their money to go to what benefits them and not fucking corporations. I don't think that's unreasonable. It's not. So again, getting back to the fact that the only way we can accomplish any of this is by getting money out of politics. That is the first and foremost, because like I said, whether you believe in healthcare or not, and again, I believe in healthcare for everyone, but I also agree with you. I think that you need to earn that fucking healthcare. If you're a smoker, or if you're obese, if you have high blood pressure and you're not willing to do the things your doctor tells you to do, then pay for your own fucking healthcare, because it shouldn't be the responsibility of the rest of us, and you can't take responsibility for yourself. I also believe, and this is where I differ with the left, and and they consider themselves to be left, where they want to give everything fucking away. If you have to go on welfare or you have to go on unemployment, we'll help you out. But you know what? We can do like what FDR did. You can go to
Go
work.
sweep this fucking streets.
Go fucking do something. You can help build I-4 for all I give a damn. But they'll say, oh, well, that's slavery. No, it's not. It's giving a person their dignity, because when you start giving something away to them to where they start depending on it, they lose their self-worth. Because now it's like, what purpose do they have? I'd much rather get out there and do something for the money that I'm getting than to just be given it. And anybody who has any type of
when I was
self-worth would like
15, my first job that actually I had a check. Everything else was working for myself, plowing, cutting grass, doing all that stuff, making cash. I worked for a mason, and his name was Rico, and Rico was from Italy. And when he came over to Italy in the 20s, he couldn't get a job. So his job was shoveling the railroad tracks off for the mass transit up there, for the subways and trolleys to get through the snow. Okay. One thing leads to the next. He's a mason from Italy. He starts a masonry business. Beautiful stuff. So one day, I got to know him very well. He was like a mentor for me. And he would tell me about what it was like to come over here. And he said, the way it was when I came over here, you knew one thing when you came to America. There's no free lunch. Okay? Now, Kurt, that's a difference between that message, which is you're going to have to make shit happen, versus there's free lunch for everybody. And unfortunately, the message I'm hearing when I watch these debates and listen to these people that we're talking about here, it's free lunch for everybody. No matter what you need, it's free lunch.
And I agree. And
the challenge with that is we're breeding people who want to put nothing out there for effort or worth and want it for nothing. I got to tell you, that's the message we're also sending to the rest of the world. Come here, everything's free.
Okay.
Free health, free education, free housing, all this bullshit.
And I don't. And
I say fuck that shit.
And I don't agree that that's the message that Sanders is putting out there. And I don't believe that that anybody wants people to come here and have a free lunch, as you say, without being a part of society, without producing, without being, where you're helping us and not just taking from us. Nobody wants that. Nobody. And now that's the message that gets twisted to say, oh, well, they want everything for free. But that's not the true message. And again, people keep changing these narratives and twisting the narrative to fit what they want. And this is where I'm going to get back to Bernie being attacked in this multi-pronged attack. First, you have Warren, who comes out and says Bernie said a woman could never be president, which is everyone who, if there's nothing else you can say about Bernie, you can say that motherfucker's been consistent throughout the decades. And he's always said, in fact, he was the one who pushed Warren to run for the presidency in 2016, but she didn't want to because she didn't want to run against Hillary and the corrupt establishment, because she's part of it. But he pushed her to run for it. Now, why would he push her to run for it if he didn't think she could win? It's just, but it was an attack, because I guarantee you she was promised something by the DNC, whether it was through Biden as a vice president. I guarantee you she was promised something. Then you have Biden coming out and attacking him, saying that what his campaign said about him about wanting to cut Social Security was false and blah blah blah, and we shouldn't attack each other. And in that same ad, attacks Bernie as he's saying we shouldn't attack each other. He's a hypocrite, and again, Bernie should have never apologized because there was nothing that was said that wasn't true about Biden and what they had released, and that he throughout the years, even when him and Obama were in office, they put up Social Security to be cut, and they put it on the table, and the only reason why it didn't get passed is because the Republicans said that wasn't enough. Unfortunately, that because it wasn't enough, it didn't get passed. Otherwise, our Social Security would already been cut. So Biden is bullshit. And then you have the media who almost ignores him. And only now are they starting to mention him because they have no choice. Because one, they've been called out about it. And two, because he's leading the fucking polls everywhere. And so even when he was earlier, when he was leading polls, they wouldn't even mention that he was leading polls. They would say, "Oh, Biden's in sixth or in second place, and Pete has moved up 2 spots, and he's got a surge going," and totally neglecting that Bernie was in first place and not mentioning it. This is all deliberate, and again, I'll tell you why.
So let me ask you a question. I believe that in the last election, Bernie got screwed over big time by Wasserman and all that crew.
And Hillary,
they rigged it for Hillary to win it.
Hillary had over 300 superdelegates before it even started.
So it was rigged for Hillary because she was Hillary Clinton and she was going to be the next president, was a woman, and all that bullshit. Now, fortunately, she would have been a disaster too because her husband was the biggest pussy grabber going, and she couldn't have said shit for this whole Me Too thing. Okay, so now you take her out of the mix. She's in the background, the wings, hanging out.
Well,
what makes you think that this time around you don't have the same mechanism in place for Biden?
Because one, the rules were changed, so that shit couldn't happen again.
I understand the rules were changed, though. What makes you think that this isn't rigged? Because I see it, they're anointing Biden.
Because here's the thing: other than the hardcore Hillary supporters out there who sit there and go, "She didn't do anything wrong." Yeah, but that's why WikiLeaks released the emails between her and the DNC showing that they were fucking in collusion and that they absolutely did rig the fucking nomination. And so now you have more people out there going, "Yes, this was rigged, and we're going to make sure this shit doesn't happen again." Now, here's the thing: along with this multi-prong attack on Sanders, Hillary comes out now. Why the fuck she can't keep her mouth shut because she's got to be the center of attention? But it's not just about her being the center of attention. It's a deliberate attack on him, saying nobody likes him. Well, you know what? If I'm in Washington, D.C. and none of those corrupt motherfuckers like me, that's a plus. And that's what people are starting to realize is like, good, we're glad that they don't like him because he doesn't work with them. And and I actually had this discussion with somebody before who said, why Bernie hasn't done anything with the Democrats, so why would we support him? I said because the Democrats are fucking corrupt. Why you guys can't see that? You'll sit there and talk about how the Republicans are corrupt and how Trump is corrupt, and you can see that, but you can't see corruption in your own bed.
So here's the thing I would say to you, and I watch a little bit of different news outlets, if you want to call them that. It seems to me very clearly that Biden was the one that was picked to be the Democratic presidential person.
By the corrupt establishment.
And the media is in cahoots with them because they're constantly giving him passes for stuff.
Right.
Constantly saying, "Oh, no, Joe's going to win this." And I sit here going, well, if what you're saying is true about this groundswell of support for Bernie, why is the media not picking up on that?
Because they don't want to. Because then they don't want to put the real story out there. Because here's why: mainstream media, especially these news stations like MSNBC, CNN, Fox, all them, they realized how profitable news was years ago. Oh, yeah. And when you have a station like CNN, for instance, that they're a 24-hour news service, they've got to come up with stories all the time, and that's why they regurgitate the same stories over and over again. But during the election years, these media conglomerates make billions of dollars. Oh, yeah. Billions. What happens when money gets taken out of politics? They lose that revenue. So they have no desire to have Bernie Sanders in office, and anybody for that matter who will take money out of politics. They don't want to lose that revenue. So they're just as corrupt as, and that's the thing. Trump isn't wrong when he says, the fake news, because there's been fake news out there for decades, and they continue to push it. The problem with it is that he lies so bad himself that there are people out there who won't take him seriously. If he would just tell the fucking truth, they could see that what he's saying about the news is correct, that there's a lot of it out there. And so, that's his own undoing. I think I think the other part of this attack is by those people who deliberately call Bernie's supporters Bernie Bros. It's a way to demean those people who are part of this movement and supporting him by simply calling them Bernie Bros. It's a negative connotation to that name, and they know that, and so they're trying to just minimize it, oh, those are just Bernie Bros. Well, here's a fact. Of Bernie supporters who are 45 or younger, the majority of them are women. They're not even men. So this whole narrative that they're trying to push is that it's these white guys who are behind Bernie is bullshit. It's complete and utter bullshit. And yet this is the kind of stuff that they're going to continue to push simply because they're going to fight with everything that they have to make sure that Bernie doesn't get the nomination, because they know it's going to hurt their pocketbook. That's what it comes down to. And I want to make this point. In 2008, when McCain and Obama were running against each other, and Obama won, the Republican Party was taken by surprise. I mean, I think that they really thought that McCain was going to win. And so Obama had brought this message of change. And yes, we can, okay? The people were telling them, we want change. We want change. And the Republican Party refused to listen to them, and therefore they lost. In 2016, the people said, we want more change. We want change, and we don't want the same people who are career politicians who have dynasties in these parties to be our representatives. We want some fresh blood, some new people who are going to come out here and fight for us. And that's why Trump ran through the best of what the Republican Party had to offer. He ran through them like they were nothing, because people were so adamant about, we want someone different, and the Republican Party wasn't listening. Fortunately
they put
for
the
them,
same old stuff up.
right?
Exactly.
Fortunately, they had Trump decide to jump in there, and he jumped in at the right time, because that change, this movement for change, was so powerful that he was able to run right through them. The Democrats, on the other hand, had Bernie Sanders, and instead they rigged it so Hillary could get the nomination. And what did they do? They put the same corrupt, established candidate in there that they always have, and they lost. Now they can sit there and go, well, she won the popular vote. Well, guess what? In this country, we know that doesn't matter if she doesn't win the electoral votes. And this is the thing, and this is, everyone sits there and blames the Bernie supporters for not, for her loss. It was her own fucking fault. That's whose fault it was. She basically snubbed her nose at Bernie Sanders supporters, because she basically said, and I'm only paraphrasing, where are you going to go? Basically, that's what she was saying. If she had wanted to win the electoral vote and win the election, she would have had Bernie Sanders as her vice president. That would have been the smart thing to do.
It would have been a smart thing
right.
to do, exactly.
But she didn't. But she wanted to show she didn't need us. She didn't need him, and that she could do this on her own. And she fucking lost, and she deserved to lose. Now, this is why I say Trump is the best thing to have happened for him winning, because had Hillary won and not Trump, the progressive movement would have died right then and there. It would have been the end of it, and we wouldn't be having these conversations, and there wouldn't be this chance for real change in our lifetime. Because I believe this: if Bernie does not get the nomination, and we end up getting another centrist in there, I think what we're going to find is that this movement will be dead, because there'll be no recourse to start it up again. And all right, so again, I just think it was a good thing for us that Trump did win and that Hillary lost. Otherwise, the progressive movement would have died. And I want to say one more thing about Hillary. She came out with this whole thing about no one likes Bernie, and she's complaining about him, even though back in 2016. She praised him for his tireless campaigning for her, and how wonderful he was for supporting her. And now she's coming out claiming, oh, well, he should have supported me sooner. The thing is that she didn't do that with Obama. And, and with this whole bullshit of the Democrats like Biden and Hillary and the rest of them sitting there going, oh, well, we should have party unity. I think they forgot back when Hillary ran against Obama that her supporters were known as Pumas, which started for party unity my ass. And so, it's amazing how they have this selective memory and how everything's supposed to be their way when they want it, but when it was their turn, they didn't have to play by those rules. They're fucking hypocrites, and that's
they are.
Of course they are. And so, and I think, and here's the thing: if Bernie is not liked by anybody, then what the hell are you bitching about him not supporting you for? Because why would you want someone to support you that nobody likes? So you're full of shit. And again, these things need to be pointed out. And again, I know I'll hear shit from people who are Hillary supporters who think she can do no wrong because they don't believe she's corrupt. Just like Trump supporters don't believe he's corrupt. They're both corrupt. And they go, well, she's been the most, they say she's been the most investigative woman ever, blah, blah, blah. And they go, look, I didn't say she did anything illegal. I said she's corrupt. They're not the same thing. And for some reason, they can't wrap their head around that. Her bill, I mean, you don't go from being millions in debt to being worth over $130 million. Yeah. And there's just a couple other points I'd like to make. One is the Republicans and the Democrats want us to fight against each other. They don't want us to actually point the finger where it belongs, which is on them. They want us fighting against each other like it's a sports team. And that's unfortunately where we've kind of gotten with our politics is we treat them as if they're a sports team. And so we support them, right or wrong, we support them. And that's at our own detriment. And so that type of mentality needs to change. You also have Trump supporters going on Facebook and Twitter and other sites, and they're masquerading as Hillary supporters and Bernie supporters, and they're making posts with the intent to do nothing more than start a fight. And you would think that we would have learned our lesson from 2016, but instead people continue to fall for this bullshit, and they get online and they continue to fight with each other on Facebook, and they'll post the most ridiculous things like, oh, Bernie supporters said that, that 53% of the Bernie supporters said if he's not nominated, then they're not going to vote for the Democratic nominee, and that's complete and utter bullshit. Even in 2016, it was less than 12%. So all of a sudden now over half are going to sit there and go, "Oh, we're going to vote for Trump." That's bullshit, and it's a bullshit story. But people buy into it because those who want to believe it post it, and those who don't believe it will fight against it, and it's a complete and utter bullshit story. And then you have those trolls out there who do nothing but stir up trouble. These are people who get enjoyment out of watching people fight. I call them little attention whores because apparently they didn't get attention by their parents when they were children. So they'll put out some bullshit story or some meme or something because they know it will incite people. And then they'll sit back and watch people say things to them because, again, for them, even if it's negative attention, it's attention, which they're not getting anywhere else. And so, and the people are falling into the same trap that they fell into 4 years ago.
So I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation. You take right now, I think Warren's going to melt down because she's just such a freaking idiot.
Well, okay. She melted down when she called said Bernie said that. Everyone knew that was a bullshit lie.
Well, no, I got to play. She's so full of shit. Okay, so she's going to be gone.
Yeah.
So let's take a scenario that it gets down between Biden and Bernie,
which is probably the most
and Mike
accurate.
Bloomberg.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How does Bernie pull it off? Given
easy because Bloomberg's going to take voters from Biden. He won't take them from Bernie. That's how Bernie wins. I hope Bloomberg stays in. I hope because you got to realize that the Democratic Party asked Bloomberg to come in because they didn't think Biden could do the job. So in order for their plan to work, one of the two are going to have to drop out, and Biden's not going to drop out because his ego would be bruised if he had to drop out. He's only going to drop out if he doesn't have the funding, because he's supposed to be their star candidate, you know.
He's a disaster.
But he is a disaster. Of course he is. And and Trump would rip him apart. And this is the other part. It's like, oh, so when I was talking about change, the Democrats didn't listen, and they put Hillary in, and they lost. Had Bernie been the candidate, he would have trounced Trump, because people were looking for change, but they wanted somebody who was fucking sane. But since they didn't have one, they took the insane person. They didn't care. They wanted change. And I'm telling you that the people still want change, and they're not going to vote. I promise you. They can sit there and say, oh, well, you know, vote blue no matter what. People are telling you we don't want just blue. We want a fucking candidate who's going to fight for us. And Biden's not going to do that. Bloomberg, Bloomberg, I think, is a good guy, but he's not going to change the establishment. And that's what needs to be done at its core. So go ahead. You were going to say something.
So given the three choices, though, how does Bernie pull it out between Biden?
Bloomberg will take votes from Biden. They'll separate their votes. Bernie doesn't have that problem. Bernie's not going to lose voters to Bloomberg or Biden. Not even a chance.
All right. So then, so let's go forward on this. So now Bloomberg squeezes Biden out. Now it's between Bloomberg and Bernie.
Mm-hmm.
How does Bernie pull it off?
Again, I think he has a more support on the ground than you would imagine. The fact that his people are on the phones, they go out and knock door to door. He's not doing these, $1,000 plate dinners and trying to get the big donors to come in and give him money. And what's happening is not just the money that he's getting from these people, but he's getting their support, because these people, when you come knock on my door and you show me that you're actually listening to me and you care about what I want, and you're willing to get out and hear the voices of the people, that means you're not just getting my money, you're getting my vote as well. And Bloomberg doesn't have that. Neither does Biden. And none of them have that to the extent that Bernie has it. And that's how he's going to win this election. And when he goes up against Trump, and Trump, there's a recording of Trump, he doesn't want to go against Bernie because he doesn't have anything on Bernie. The only thing that he can say is Bernie's a socialist. How many times are you going to repeat that? Because it doesn't ring true, and everybody knows it's not true. He's not a socialist. He's a democratic socialist, which means that he believes that democracy and socialism can work together, and we know it does. And it works together for the betterment of society. Again, that's why we have public schools. That's why we have public libraries, public fire departments, police departments, military, because it benefits us as a society. I don't want to have to pay for my police department to go, oh, you called us out this week because somebody was going to stab you to death? Well, that's going to cost you $500 because we made a call out to your home. It doesn't make any sense. And so we can see that when you have social ideas or social programs mixed with capitalism, that's when it works its best, when they are together. And to try to demonize one because the capitalists don't want to pay for it, fuck you. That's all it is. It's greed. It comes down to you just want to be greedier than you already are. And while I believe billionaires should be able to be billionaires and millionaires should be able to be millionaires, I understand the mindset of billionaires only because I studied them, not because I am one. And I know that it doesn't come down to, because people go, when's enough money enough? And it's not about money for them. It's about the game. It's about being the best. It's about being on top. It's about showing I have more than you do, not to the poor people, but to the other billionaires. And so that's their mindset. This is a game that they want to win. It's not about the money per se. So I like this. I enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoyed it like I did.
I did. My vote's going to Mike.
Yeah. Well, I hope this. This is what I have to say in closing. I hope this episode has helped clear up some of the things about Bernie Sanders and the truth about him, and instead of the nonsense that's been propagated out there about him, and to realize that if we want real change, and if we understand that getting money out of politics is the number one thing, that him or Andrew Yang are the only two real possibilities. I would love to see a Bernie Sanders, Andrew Yang ticket. I don't think we will, but I would love to see that, because there's a lot of policies that I agree with on Andrew Yang, and it would be great to see two progressives as president and vice president, and then continue to vote for more progressives to get these corrupt centrists out of the party and let them go to the Republican Party where they belong, as far as I'm concerned. But regardless of who you support, I want you, even if you're not a Bernie supporter, even after this, I would want you to get out there and vote, because if you don't, then you leave it in the hands of other people. And this is and I'm going to tell this to the younger people, from the millennials on down. You're the largest voting group in the country right now. And if you don't get out and vote, then you're going to let old fuckers vote for your future. So just keep that in mind. So when you end up paying for their lifestyle, and you're in debt for the rest of your lives, it's because you decided that your vote didn't count and you didn't want to get off your ass and get out there and vote. So if you do that, it's on you. You don't have anyone else to blame now except yourself for not getting out there and voting. Be as informed as you can and get up and go out and vote. That's what I hope everybody will do. So,
power to the people.
Power to the people. All right. This has been great. I enjoyed it. I hope everybody else enjoyed it as much as I did. And until next time, everyone, take care.
The Powers Project. Powers Project.